Good morning, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. It's Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. This is your AM update.
If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
Is it classified or non-classified information on this text?
A tense day on Capitol Hill for Trump administration intel officials after The Atlantic's editor-in-chief was accidentally added to what he calls a war planning group chat. The DOJ claiming former Columbia student agitator Mahmoud Khalil, whom DHS is seeking to deport, lied on his green card application.
He's going to use his authority unchecked until this point to lead the judicial insurrection, the judicial resistance to President Trump and his administration.
Reporter Julie Kelly does a deep dive on Judge Boasberg in an AM Update exclusive. And President Trump pardons Hunter Biden's ex-best friend. All that and more coming up in just a moment on your AM Update. There's a lot of talk about government debt, but after 4 years of inflation, another real crisis is personal debt. Some people are working harder than ever and still drowning in credit card debt and overdue bills. But there's Done with Debt. Now, Done with Debt has unique escape strategies to help end your debt fast so you can keep more of your hard-earned money. Done with Debt does not try to sell you a loan or bankruptcy. Their tough negotiators will go one-on-one with your credit card and loan companies with one goal: to drastically reduce your bills, eliminate interest, and erase penalties. Most clients wind up with more money in their pocket month one, and they don't stop until they break you free from debt permanently. Take a few minutes and visit donewithdebt.com. Speak with one of their debt strategists for free. But listen up, some of their solutions are time sensitive, so you got to move quickly. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. President Trump expressing confidence in National Security Advisor Mike Waltz following a report that Mr. Waltz accidentally added The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, to a private group chat on messaging app Signal discussing war plans. Mr. Trump saying in a gaggle, quote, "Michael Waltz has learned a lesson and he's a good man." Mr. Trump saying the incident is the only glitch in the 2 months since retaking office and, quote, "It turned out to not be a serious one." Left-wing critics disagree.
Folks, apps like Signal are not government-approved platforms to transmit classified information. You would think folks would know that.
There are systems in place for these classified conversations to take place. They're a bit unwieldy. You have to use different phones, different equipment, different systems, but they are in place so that you don't have to use something like Signal.
These are national security professionals at the highest levels of government. They should know better.
Republican analyst Scott Jennings on CNN saying much of the criticism is likely overblown.
The Signal program was preloaded on a number of devices and agency computers in this circuit when they got there. So in their view, it was already in use. Number two, in some of the messages, they talk about needing to go to the high side computers, which is the classified system. So they clearly were knowing there was a line on what you could discuss in a chat like this versus classified system. Number three, there is a dispute over whether the term war plans is being exaggerated.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says no war plans were shared. Jeffrey Goldberg telling CNN on Monday night they were.
He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was at the targets, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. And I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential.
Mr. Goldberg saying in subsequent interviews he may release more of the conversation. On Tuesday morning, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, FBI Director Kash Patel, and CIA Director John Radcliffe appearing before the Senate Intel Committee on a hearing about global threats facing the U.S. It turned into a grilling on the Signal chat. Both Directors Gabbard and Radcliffe, who were on the message chain, saying no classified intelligence was shared.
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
The Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority, and my understanding is that his comments are that any information that he shared was not classified.
Democrats on the committee orchestrating many combative exchanges.
Did Jeff Goldberg, did he create a hoax that allowed him to become part of this Signal thread? Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people.
It's hard for me to believe that targets and timing and weapons would not have been classified. Well,
If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
Is it
stated,
classified or non-classified information on this text?
Back at the White House, the administration embracing what they think of as the big picture, like the attacks against the Houthi rebels, were a success.
We are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles, knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites. And for once, as we hear, as you will all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again.
New details in the Trump administration's fight to deport former Columbia University student agitator Mahmoud Khalil. Khalil objects to being deported, arguing in part that he has a green card. In a new court filing, federal prosecutors saying Mr. Khalil lied on that green card application by leaving out key information from his background. Prosecutors alleging Mr. Khalil failed to report his role as a political affairs officer with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees from June to November 2023, a period that includes the October 7th Hamas attacks, in which 1,200 people were killed in Israel and around 250 taken hostage, including Americans. In January 2024, Israeli intelligence reported that at least 12 UNRWA employees took part in the October 7th attacks, prompting the Biden administration to suspend U.S. funding to UNRWA. A December 2024 UN Watch report further accusing UNRWA's leadership of allowing Hamas to infiltrate the group and indoctrinate Palestinian children with terrorist ideology. While Mr. Khalil's exact responsibilities at UNRWA are unclear, reporting indicates he was enrolled in a Columbia master's program from 2022 through December 2024, overlapping with the period prosecutors say he worked for UNRWA. It's not known whether he worked remotely, traveled to the region, or both. Prosecutors claim Khalil also failed to disclose his continuing employment with the British Embassy in Beirut after 2022. Finally, the filing claims that Mr. Khalil did not disclose his involvement to the feds with Columbia University Apartheid Divest, the radical activist student group he joined on Columbia's campus, which reportedly expressed sympathy for Hamas and Hezbollah. The group, for which Khalil was spokesman, organizing major protests at Columbia, including the takeover of Hamilton Hall last year and the creation of the Gaza Solidarity Encampment, both of which led to hundreds of arrests. Mr. Khalil's lawyer calls the new charges, quote, completely meritless, saying, quote, this case is purely about First Amendment protected activity and speech, and U.S. citizens and permanent residents alike are free to say what they wish about what is going on in the world. Coming up, a closer look at U.S. District Court Chief Judge Judge Boasberg, the central figure in the Trump administration's legal battle to deport illegal immigrants under the Alien Enemies Act, and President Trump signing a pardon for Hunter Biden's ex-best friend. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. Oh, joy. If you owe back taxes or you have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. Not a good one. April 15th could mark another tax year that has passed you by and stressed you out. So the smart move is get ahead of it now. But listen, never contact the IRS alone. That's crazy talk. Instead, you could let the experts at Tax Network USA handle this problem for you. Why? Well, not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, so they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe 10 grand or 10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Speak with one of their strategists today for free. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. That's tnusa.com/Megyn. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now, people, before the IRS acts first. U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg emerging as a central figure in the legal resistance to the second Trump administration. So far, federal judges handing down at least 15 universal injunctions, nationwide orders halting President Trump's executive actions that can take months or even years to overturn. None drawing more intense scrutiny than Judge Boasberg's decision to block deportations under President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Judge Boasberg first halting the removal of 5 suspected members of the Tren de Aragua gang from Venezuela, later broadening that injunction to cover all non-citizens subject to deportation under the order. The move sparking fierce backlash from the Trump team, senior advisor Stephen Miller accusing Judge Boasberg and others of overreach.
These radical, rogue judges that are usurping the powers of the presidency and laying waste to our entire constitutional system.
We spoke with Julie Kelly, reporter for Declassified on Substack, who has covered Judge Boasberg's work extensively, both in this case and during his oversight of the January 6th trials in Washington, D.C. She says the judge's concern for Venezuelan deportees stands in stark contrast to how he treated nonviolent Trump supporters.
He sentenced one man who had just told him that his cancer returned. He sentenced him to 45 days in prison. He sent another woman, 60-year-old woman from Pennsylvania, on nonviolent offenses, sent her to prison for 14 months. Her husband also had cancer. You know, they're aware of how these federal prisons operate. They know exactly how these people are going to be treated. So I think that's the real double standard here, is his very cautious concern over not just the alleged due process rights of these Venezuelans, but worried about how they're going to be treated in an El Salvador prison, when he demonstrated no such concern over how Trump supporters were going to be treated in federal prisons.
Under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, the president has sweeping authority during wartime, an invasion, or an incursion to deport citizens of hostile nations with limited due process. Judge Boasberg has acknowledged that throughout the case, but continues to uphold his injunction anyway, citing due process concerns for the illegal immigrants who are alleged gang members. Ms. Kelly reporting that Judge Boasberg participated at a privately funded anti-Trump event. Just the News, detailing on Monday the legal conference, featured sponsors and speakers who have expressed clear anti-Trump sentiments, particularly on immigration and January 6th, and a theme that echoed the Democrat Party's 2024 stated mission of, quote, saving democracy.
He attended a big conference in Idaho sponsored by several well-known anti-Trump donors and officials. And the D.C. Bar Association, that has done all that it can to destroy lawyers associated with the president. As the chief judge of the D.C. District Court, you shouldn't be attending any event that has political tones to it or any political angle to it. But he's showing up to demonstrate that he's going to use his authority unchecked until this point to lead the judicial insurrection, the judicial resistance to President Trump and his administration.
Beyond Judge Boasberg's alleged political bias, Ms. Kelly pointing to signs of coordinated lawfare, highlighting ACLU documentation, including testimony from the 5 unnamed Venezuelans at the heart of this case. One claiming to have overheard, quote, 2 U.S. government officials talking, end quote, saying, there is an order saying we can't take off, but we already have.
There are groups of lawyers who are coaching illegals how to buck the system. So this appears to be a very good representation of that, how these illegals know exactly what needs to be said, exactly how to countermand what the administration is saying in court, and protect themselves from being identified as part of this gang. So it was pretty interesting to read these sworn statements, these declarations, talking about what they saw and what they heard, but also saying that they don't speak English and they were asked to sign documents, but they didn't because they don't understand the language. So it just goes to the insanity of the whole process.
On Monday, attorneys for the Trump administration and the defendants presenting oral arguments before a 3-judge panel of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. The Trump administration asking the court to lift the pause on deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. The Obama-appointed judge on the D.C. Circuit appeared skeptical of the administration's argument. Patricia Millett, highly doubtful of the government's claims. She suggested that the Nazis were treated better under the Alien Enemies Act than the Venezuelan subjects. Julie Kelly saying another Trump-appointed Judge Justin Walker was in fact more skeptical of the ACLU's arguments.
Judge Walker, on the other hand, kept pushing the ACLU as to why they didn't pursue habeas petitions for these individuals. They didn't really have a good answer for that. He kept saying that that was the appropriate remedy and asked, why did the ACLU choose to file that lawsuit in Washington, D.C. when none of the illegals in that lawsuit lived in Washington, D.C.? So it seemed like Judge Walker was very skeptical and noted, I think, identified several problems with both the ACLU lawsuit and Judge Boasberg's temporary restraining order. So because it's an emergency motion, expecting some sort of answer this week. So they might put a temporary stay on Judge Boasberg's temporary restraining orders to halt those flights. And if they do, what the DOJ said Monday afternoon is they would then go ahead and restart those deportation flights of TDA members to El Salvador.
The third judge on the panel, Karen Henderson, is a George H.W. Bush appointee. She remained very quiet at the argument, making her vote harder to predict. Devin Archer, former business partner of Hunter Biden, on Tuesday receiving a federal pardon from President Trump. Mr. Archer was convicted in 2018 of 2 felonies for his role in fraudulently selling more than $60 million of tribal bonds on behalf of a South Dakota tribe. The judge sentencing Mr. Archer to a year in prison, ordering him to forfeit nearly $16 million and pay $43 million in restitution. Mr. Archer has since claimed Hunter Biden was also involved in the scheme, but he was protected from prosecution. In August 2023, Mr. Archer testified in a closed-door oversight committee hearing where he provided firsthand accounts of Hunter Biden discussing business dealings with then Vice President Joe Biden, contrary to what the Biden family had previously maintained. President Trump signing a full pardon from the White House on Tuesday afternoon.
He's was prosecuted relating to a fraud investigation, but notably the tone and tenor of that prosecution changed dramatically after he began to cooperate with congressional investigators and serve as a witness against Hunter Biden and the Biden family. We believe that was an injustice, and therefore we're asking you to pardon him.
And many people have asked me to do this. I think he was treated very unfairly. And I looked at the records, studied the records, and he was a victim of a crime.
Mr. Archer telling the New York Post, quote, "Like so many people, my life was devastated by the Biden family's selfish disregard for the truth and for the peace of mind and happiness of others." And that'll do it for your AM update. I'm Megyn Kelly. Join me back here for the Megyn Kelly Show, live on SiriusXM Triumph Channel 111 at noon East, on youtube.com/Megyn Kelly, and on all podcast platforms.